My name is Layla, and I'm 37 years old. I work as a homemaker and have been married to my husband Jimmy for 13 years. Currently, we live together as a family of four with our daughter Karen and my mother-in-law. A few years ago, after my father-in-law passed away, we moved in with my mother-in-law at her home. Living with her turned out to be far from peaceful. Soon after we moved in, she began to criticize and harass me. "Is dinner ready?" she would demand as I cooked in the kitchen. "It better not take too long. Everyone's hungry." She would taste the food as I prepared it. "Layla, this pot roast has no flavor. It's awful," she'd complain. "How could you mess it up even after tasting it?" Despite her constant complaints, she never offered to help with dinner or any other household chores. During the day, she would simply lounge around the house. When dinner was finally served and we all sat down to eat, Jimmy and Karen would praise the food that earlier she had criticized. "This pot roast is delicious," they'd say. "Yeah, Mom, it's really tasty," Karen would add. At that point, my mother-in-law would change her tune. "Yes, the seasoning is just right," she'd say, contradicting her earlier criticism. Despite her harsh treatment of me, she always spoke kindly to Jimmy and Karen, never wanting them to see her differently. In front of Jimmy and Karen, she sometimes praised me. I thought to myself, today, Layla did all the housework considering my health. She's truly a capable wife, isn't she, Layla? Deep down, I knew that my mother-in-law had forced all the household chores onto me, but I dared not speak up. Whenever I tried to deny her false praise, she would subtly kick my leg under the table where no one else could see. "Yes, that's true," I would manage to say, offering a forced smile. Jimmy, unaware of the truth, would thank me warmly. "Thanks for always being so kind to my mom," he'd say with a smile, believing her words despite the reality. I could never hide my bewilderment at my mother-in-law's blatant attitude. Because of this, Jimmy never noticed that I was being harassed. He even thought that my mother-in-law and I got along well. Jimmy cared deeply for his mother, especially after his father passed away. His concern for her was unmatched. I couldn't bring myself to say anything negative about my mother-in-law to Jimmy, who loved her dearly. This fondness for her was another reason I kept silent and never sought anyone's advice. When it was decided that we would move in with my in-laws, Karen exclaimed happily, "Yay, I get to live with Grandma now." She adored her grandmother, and they were very close, always playing together and even taking baths together. My mother-in-law's harassment towards me escalated. Once after I returned from shopping, I found the room in disarray. "Hey, mother-in-law, what happened? Why is everything so messy?" I asked, surprised. With a smug look, she replied, "I couldn't find something, and before I knew it, it became a mess." I knew the house would be turned upside down just from looking for something. Mother-in-law had surely done it to harass me. "Sorry, I'm going to dinner with friends now. Cleaning's on you," she added before quickly leaving the house. As expected, I ended up spending the entire day cleaning. I couldn't attend to any other chores. When mother-in-law returned home, she commented, "Laundry, dishes, cleaning, none of it's done. What on earth were you doing?" I bit back my anger at her shameless behavior. I quietly continued with the housework, feeling the pressure of my mother-in-law's constant criticism. "Hurry up, or everyone will come home. If Jimmy realizes what an incapable wife you are, he'll surely divorce you," she taunted, never lifting a finger to help, only hurrying and nagging me. As the evening wore on and dinner remained nowhere near ready, my anxiety grew. In the end, dinner was late, she scolded. "What? Dinner's not ready yet? I'm sorry, it will be ready soon. Just wait a bit longer," I replied, trying to stay composed. Jimmy, concerned, asked, "Are you feeling ill?" "No, it's not that. Today has been a bit hectic," I started to explain, but a glance from my mother-in-law silenced me. Her glare warned me not to speak. Mother-in-law seemed determined to portray me as incapable, hoping Jimmy would grow frustrated and consider divorce. Yet Jimmy's kindness prevailed. Instead of blaming me, he expressed concern for my well-being. Unamused, mother-in-law's harassment towards me intensified. Lately, it extended beyond me to interfere in Karen's affairs. "You two seem to be pushing Karen into attending a private middle school," she accused. "Yes, we are. Is there a problem with that?" I replied firmly. "It's cruel to make her study late every night for exams." "Stop it right now," she demanded. "We are not going to stop just because you said so. Karen herself wants this," I countered. "Kids should just play and have fun. There's no need to force them to study," she insisted. Working hard now will open up more options for her future, and Karen wants this, I argued. You were not doing it for Karen, you were forcing it on her, aren't you? She accused sharply. That's not true, I replied firmly. As Karen dedicated herself to studying and attending tutoring sessions, our time together diminished, displeasing my mother-in-law. Just give up on the middle school exams. It's a waste of time, she concluded, dismissing Karen's aspirations. I couldn't contain my anger at her command. Mother-in-law's disrespect towards Karen's feelings and her selfish remarks infuriated me. Isn't it normal to support Karen when she wants to do this? I retorted, my frustration evident. What? How dare you talk back? Mother-in-law seemed taken aback, as I had never spoken up like this before. Karen's exams have nothing to do with you, mother-in-law, I asserted firmly. What do you mean, nothing to do? I'm her grandmother, she countered sharply. Realizing arguing would lead nowhere, I decided to leave. Enough of this, I'm going to pick up Karen, I stated, trying to diffuse the tension. Mother-in-law continued to harass me in front of Jimmy and Karen, seemingly unable to let go of my defiance. Today's dinner looks plain. Is this all we have? She criticized, clearly still upset with me. You can't even think about feeding a growing child. I'm sorry, I replied calmly. Finally, Jimmy couldn't remain silent any longer and snapped at his mother. Come on, Mom, don't complain about the meal that Layla made. His outburst caught mother-in-law off guard, and she quickly backpedaled. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant to say. Not wanting to escalate the conflict further, I brushed it off. It's fine. After dinner, while I was washing dishes, my mother-in-law came over and muttered ominously, "Remember this," before retreating to her room. From then on, every day was filled with fear, wondering what she might do next. Then one day, it was the day of Karen's acceptance announcement. We nervously headed to the venue. When we checked the bulletin board, Karen's number was clearly displayed there. You did it, Karen. Awesome, you got accepted, we exclaimed, overjoyed. Karen had been studying tirelessly for months, and her efforts had paid off with her passing the middle school exams. We have to celebrate today, I declared. Karen, what would you like to eat? Steak, it's my absolute favorite, Karen replied excitedly. Should we order delivery? Jimmy suggested. Hooray, Karen cheered. On my way home, I called the steakhouse and ordered a luxurious steak for delivery. We also decided to buy a cake, so I made a small detour to ask my mother-in-law to receive the steak delivery at the house. When I called her, she replied, "Understood, I'll take care of it." Due to various detours and delays, we didn't get home until well past lunchtime. I'm starving. I want to eat the steak now, Karen exclaimed eagerly as we arrived home. You're right, we're late. The steak should be here, so let's eat plenty, okay? I reassured her. As we entered the house, we ran into my mother-in-law's friends leaving, who all thanked us for the feast in unison before departing. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach and hurried inside. The dining table was in disarray, the remnants of the steak delivery strewn about. Mother-in-law, did you eat the steak? I asked, trying to keep my composure. Ah, if it's the delivery steak, I enjoyed it with my friends at a luncheon. You'll pay for it later, she replied nonchalantly. What are you doing? I exclaimed, unable to hide my frustration. You were probably planning to order delivery and slack off from housework. I won't allow that, she retorted defiantly. This was supposed to celebrate Karen's success. I reminded her sharply. I had informed mother-in-law beforehand that today was the day Karen's acceptance to middle school would be announced, but she seemed to have forgotten or ignored my words. Karen and Jimmy arrived shortly after. Karen had overheard our conversation in the corridor and was in tears. Rayma saw me, Karen sobbed, her excitement turning to disappointment. Karen had been eager to share her success with her grandmother, but it seemed mother-in-law hadn't even remembered it was the day of Karen's announcement. I thought it was understandable for Karen to cry. Mom, today was Karen's middle school acceptance announcement. How could you forget such an important day? That's awful, I confronted my mother-in-law. She seemed unable to hide her agitation. What? Today, Layla? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I did tell you, I insisted, my frustration mounting. I was too certain to even feel angry. Karen worked hard and got accepted, so we were going to celebrate by eating her favorite steak, I continued, trying to reason with her. To think you'd eat it with your friends? I can't believe it, mother-in-law exclaimed defensively. No, it wasn't like that. I really didn't know, I countered. You didn't know? I called you about the delivery, didn't I? She challenged. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. Mom, did you eat it on purpose? Karen asked tearfully. On purpose, you say? Mother-in-law's face paled, and she began to sweat. Desperately, she tried to think of an excuse but seemed at a loss for words. I've suspected this for a while, but you really are harassing Layla, aren't you? I confronted her directly. It seemed Jimmy had a vague idea of what was going on, but since I hadn't talked to him about it, he had watched the situation unfold silently. Suddenly, mother-in-law approached Karen and said, I'm sorry. Let's all go to the steakhouse. I'll pack, Karen responded bitterly. I hate Grandma. She pushed mother-in-law away and rushed to her room. The shock of being rejected by her beloved granddaughter seemed to hit mother-in-law hard. She froze, sitting on the floor where she had landed. Later, I gathered the courage to tell Jimmy everything about how mother-in-law had been harassing me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Jimmy asked, his expression grave. I couldn't say anything when I thought about you and Karen, I replied, feeling a mix of relief and regret. I'm sorry for forcing you to endure this all this time, Jimmy said earnestly. You don't have to endure it anymore. Jimmy suggested that we move to ensure I wouldn't be harassed anymore. Since Karen also expressed her desire not to live with mother-in-law anymore, we were able to leave the house without any reservations. Thank you, I said gratefully. On moving day, while I was packing, mother-in-law came into the room. Are you really leaving the house? She asked, her face showing signs of sadness. Yes, you must be glad to be away from someone you hate, I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. I don't exactly hate you, mother-in-law said softly. Could you please leave? You're in the way of my packing, I replied firmly, trying to drive her out of the room. She suddenly began to plead, please don't leave. I'll apologize for everything. Please. I can't bear to be apart from Karen, mother-in-law cried, refusing to let go despite my explanations. Feeling stuck, I made a proposal. Actually, we are moving to my parents' house. If you really can't bear to be apart from Karen, will you come with us? There was a moment of silence, then unexpected laughter filled the room. My father has a very stern and scary face, I added, half-jokingly, knowing mother-in-law was aware of this. Surprisingly, she agreed. I understand. That's fine with me, she said, shocking me with her acceptance. It became clear that mother-in-law's desire to be with Karen outweighed everything else. Since she wouldn't dare to harass me in front of my parents, and knowing I could report any issues to my father, I reluctantly agreed to live together. Jimmy reassured me, if anything happens with my mom coming along, feel free to kick her out. So we all moved to my parents' house and our cohabitation began. My father, aware of how mother-in-law had treated me and disrupted Karen's celebration, didn't directly blame her. However, his silent disapproval was palpable, causing mother-in-law to speak less and appear downcast. When my mother-in-law moved in with us, she surprised me by readily helping with the housework and working hard. I couldn't help but chuckle at her transformed appearance. Life went on without incident for a while, but eventually, mother-in-law reached her breaking point and yelled, I'm sick of this house. My father is intimidating and Karen can't get through to him. Jimmy's attitude toward mother-in-law had grown colder as he struggled to endure various tensions. Karen, let's go home together. Mother-in-law tried to forcefully pull a resistant Karen out of the house. Mother-in-law, stop it. Can't you see Karen doesn't want to go? I intervened. It's better to be with me than in this house, mother-in-law insisted. Just then, my father arrived. What are you doing? Knock it off, he demanded. Frightened by my father's stern tone, mother-in-law froze in fear. I allowed you to live with us because you said you didn't want to be apart from your granddaughter. But if you try to take Karen against her will, I'll call the police for kidnapping, my father warned. I didn't mean it that way, mother-in-law muttered, visibly shaken. Hearing my father's outburst, Jimmy rushed over. Mom, what are you doing? Just leave us. We can't deal with you anymore. I'm cutting ties completely. No, no way, mother-in-law protested. Karen shook off mother-in-law's hand and screamed, Get out. Even mother-in-law seemed shocked by Karen's outburst, dropping her shoulders and leaving the house in tears. Now, she lives a lonely life back at her own house. Afterward, mother-in-law became reclusive and even neighbors and friends began to keep their distance. On the other hand, our family lives peacefully every day. Karen studies diligently at her private school, and Jimmy has grown close to my parents, especially my father, with whom he enjoys daily drinks. Reflecting on everything, I wish I had spoken to Jimmy earlier and moved to my parents' house